In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. Before we get started, gotta do my plugs. If you haven't listened before, my music for my intro was created by Michael James McGarry. You can follow him on Instagram at it's MJ Made or it's MJ Music on SoundCloud. And my logo for my intro was created by Nicole Summers from the Reliably Chaotic podcast, which is a D&D storytelling podcast with original characters and story and world. A lot of fun, so I suggest you always check that out. And as always, if you want to be on the show, it's really simple. Just follow us here live on Twitch, or you can follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and then send me an email to youhadtobethere dndpodcast@gmail.com, and that is DND with the 3 letters, not the symbol. And that'll bring me to my guest today, is Jacob Cortis. Hey, Jacob.
Hi there. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for doing the show. So, we always kind of just get right to it. I just want to hear like a little kind of brief story behind you on how you got started. So you play, when you sent me the email, you play a bunch of different systems.
Oh yeah. Right. I predominantly play 5e because that's what everybody's kind of playing right now.
Right.
But I'm a huge Memes Masterminds 2e fan. I just ran 2 one-shots when my normal game took a break.
Okay.
Of Call of Cthulhu, the most recent edition,
Nice.
and of Bubble Gumshoe, which is an excellent game. I don't know if you've played that yet.
I've not. I've heard of Call of Cthulhu. The Bubblegum, what is that one? That's
Bubble Gumshoe is based off the Gumshoe system, which is supposed to be like a detective kind of game, right?
okay. Very cool. That sounds fun.
But Bubble Gumshoe is that game kind of remade a little bit so it fits into a more high school setting. So you're playing teen detectives. So the players had to, in my game, they had to do figure out who was killing off all the mascots at the school.
That's hilarious. I love that. That's awesome. It's kind of weird because I'm like, oh no, I'm 30, but I feel like I'm a high school mentality most of the time. So I feel like I'd fit right in with that.
It's wonderful. It's a lot of
how
fun.
long have you been playing all these games for?
I've been playing D&D I've been playing, I guess, tabletop games in general for about 10 years now.
All right.
I started out on 3.5. All my friends played 3.5.
Right.
All my friends at the time were already had been playing for years, so they were, sampling other systems, and they were already bouncing around. They wanted to play whatever they could.
Excellent.
So that kind of immediately from the beginning, I played a couple sessions of 3.5, and then somebody was throwing Call of Cthulhu at me, or someone was throwing Pathfinder, somebody was throwing whatever at me, and we all kind of bounced around. Technically, the first game I ever ran was the Doctor Who RPG, which is still one of my favorite games.
That's right up my alley. Is that?
Oh, it's so good.
I gotta. Maybe that'll. My wife's like on the fence of playing games, but we're both really big Doctor Who fans, so that might be the fishing reel I need to get her into this kind of stuff. But
definitely, it's so nice. There's no leveling system in it.
Okay.
In a traditional sense, so you don't have like levels 1, 2, 3, whatever. Instead, it's all based upon your decisions RP wise. So at the end of the session, your GM, your DM, your storyteller, whatever, gives you based on what you did in the session, gives you benefits. So you might get, bonuses to, flight, or bonuses to whatever thing you actually used in that session. So if you want to grow and learn how to do something, you better dedicate the time in the game to making it happen.
That's very cool. I really like that. So, so you said your favorite. What was the one that you said your favorite one was? What system was that?
Memes Masterminds 2e.
Okay. And what's that one kind of like?
Memes Masterminds is a superhero game, so you play as superheroes. 2e specifically kind of came out of that, it came out of that 90s era of maximum ability to do what you want. That 3.5 is very much in that same mold. There's tons of games where you have huge choices you can make, just whatever you want to do. You just got a bunch of points, spend it however you want. This is 100% point buy, so you get like 15 points per level or something like that, and then you assign them however you want to build your character, and it goes into every single thing. It's a game that's basically built to never be balanced. It's impossible to make a balanced character.
Okay.
And you just have like, they have a list of like 40 powers, and you can 40 powers, hundreds of feats, tons of different stuff you can pick from, so you can build whatever character you want, and you can explain how it works however you want. And every power, the thing I love about it is every power feeds into every other power. Okay. So you can have two characters take the same exact power sets, but they feed into each other differently, so the character functions differently. So what shuts them down is totally different than what shuts down the other one. Okay. And how their power manifest is 100% different than how the other person's does. It gives you a lot of room to flavor and build your character to maximize what you want to do.
I got you. So when you say it's not balanced, is it like the characters are broken, or just like there's always... is the combat not balanced, or just the character itself isn't balanced?
The characters themselves will never can never be balanced. Like in D&D, for instance, you can kind of set it up so you are, you're pretty good at fighting, or whatever your main form of fighting is. And you can kind of be pretty decent defense. You can make sure you're all around pretty good there. Right. With this, it's like if you want to be good at being a speedster, right? Then you are going to have to dedicate basically all of your points exclusively to being good at that. Gotcha. So you will be harder to hit, you'll be all that kind of stuff, but if you take a hit, you're going down on meat pretty quick.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't use HP, it uses like a bruise system. So if you take a certain amount of damage, you're just bruised. More than that, you're knocked out. More than that, you're unconscious, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it makes it so it emulates a superhero fight in that you want to make sure that your characters are never balanced, and if you take hits, a hit means something.
Right.
Like if in comic book, if somebody gets punched, you only see people take really 3 punches in an actual fight in a comic book. They'll deflect a bunch. Once they take that one hit, it hurts.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like as far as if you're trying to build that kind of more comic book story atmosphere, so that kind of does make a lot of sense. So that's very cool. So you DM a lot. Do you mostly DM, or do you play? Do you play
mostly
a bit too?
DM?
Mostly DM.
I wish I could play more, to be honest. I'm in that permanent DM state. I've been doing that since I started DMing. I've become the perma DM.
Those DMs, once they start going, like people dig into it, and when you're good at it, like it's tough. I'm sorry. I mean, you should be able to play eventually. I believe that. Like people should take on that role at least every once in a while. Like my last guest that I had, her group, she has their main DM, but then like once a month, one of them, like they alternate, one of them will have to do like a one shot, so that way the DM can take a break. So you should look into something like that.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough where I've had a bunch of in my home game especially, I've had a bunch of new players who have finally started DMing, who have finally gotten the courage to, and they let me play in that, but the game kind of that game kind of fell apart to a certain degree. Last thing I did is I was able to kind of make because I have a habit of making characters that are when I play that are borderline worthless. So I made a greed wizard. I kind of just bent the game enough so I can make a character who was a wizard, who was all they could do is make people feel greed, make people want to buy things. Took only spells that could do that.
Honestly, it's probably fun. I mean, because it kind of brought me to kind of what I also was going to mention is like when you're a DM and you DM so much and then you get a chance to play, I find that when DMs get a chance to play, it's brutal because there's so much that about how the game is run that sometimes like it's not even metagaming, it's just like you're just too smart, what could happen. So being able to play and then making kind of a janky character is kind of funny because it kind of limits like that. It kind of limits that high experience that a lot of DMs have. So that's kind of an interesting thought process. I also I have some efficient characters, but I like making some characters that shouldn't work and sometimes work great, but most of the time don't.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same category where I make, if I really want to, I can make an efficient character, but most of the time I want to do something that's going to be predominantly roleplay focused. So it's not very effective at most other things,
right?
But it is very good at. It allows me a lot of room to do a weird kind of colorful character.
Absolutely.
And that's what I like doing the most when I DM is coming up with those and having to stick around. So it kind of just lets me do that thing that I really love.
Like just an NPC that you get to kind of run and throw a little bit in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I always pick. It shows up with like the subclasses I pick too. Is I'm always leaning towards the ones that are that seem to that I just don't run into getting a lot of love at the end of the day.
Right. Okay.
Like I'm trying to think. A while back, I played a turtle who was Clockwork Soul turtle.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I love me the Clockwork Soul, as it's just, you can just make things balanced, and it's
right.
brutally there's you're not ever going to be doing the game breaky thing with that class, but you are going to be able to do some really fun character stuff there.
I'm a fan of the sorcerer. I haven't tried the clockwork one yet. I wanted to try a divine soul, and we did it in a one shot, and we ended up, long story short, everybody died, so I didn't really get a chance to experience it all that much. But I am a fan of the sorcerer, but I also love turtles, so like that's so funny. And I like that because the turtle doesn't get that boost in charisma, so it really kind of, you got to get lucky if you're going to make a sorcerer turtle.
Oh yeah, I picked it explicitly because part of Clockwork Soul is that some element of you has like clockworky designs somehow. Like you can see it visually on the person, and I love the idea of making it so the shell
looks like a clock.
Clockwork gears that if you looked at for long enough, it would look like they were turning and moving with each other.
That's super cool.
That was a really fun visual.
That's almost kind of makes me think like it would be cool to do almost like an artificer turtle, where maybe they lost their shell and their shell is like a built mechanical device around it, cool. And like the little Eldritch cannon could just come out of the shell, kind of. That'd be
really fun. Yeah,
yeah. But I like what I love most about making a turtle a caster is you take shield and immediately your squishy caster becomes the tank when you can bump your armor class to a 21 or 22 just like in an instant, and then they're like, oh yeah. It's my favorite. I've already talked about that, how much I love turtles on this show, but I will do it anyway. Very cool. So when you DM, do you I know you run a lot of these like kind of different systems and stuff. Do you world build at all? Like do you do your own homebrew stuff, or you kind of stick to running modules?
No, I mean I never really. Like, I honestly, for almost all my time running, I never ran modules until maybe 9 months ago. I ran my first module.
Oh, okay.
I just never, it was one of those things, I was very, I was, the super artsy kid. And I was very much had this idea of like, I am going to tell my stories, which really just led to like really awful first sessions. Like the first session I ran, 100% true. The first session I ever ran, the people I was playing with are like really, good friends then, still good friends now. And they 100% stopped an hour and a half in and was like, no, like this is not fun. Like we've done nothing for the last hour.
Okay. Tell me about this first session then, where like, tell me what you, so this was like when you were really young? This was like in the beginning?
I was like 18. 18 was like the first time I played. So I guess really young. It's weird now looking back and realize that 18 is really young.
Yeah, let me tell you. I'm with you, buddy. I am with you.
But yeah, I was running Doctor Who, and I was trying to get like the feel of the show, and I had built like this whole elaborate mystery. And what happened, and I just kept doing the thing that they do in the show where characters kind of just escort the Doctor to different places and different things.
Okay.
And I gave them it was the worst kind of railroading. Like it was like the parody of railroading.
Okay.
As they were literally just taken from one vehicle to the next and had somebody explain something happening and then taken to the next vehicle. And they were just like, and then like a portal would pop up and they were taken to the next thing. And it was, they had zero agency, zero anything.
It was just linear. You're like, I'm not going to let you take this off the rails kind of deal.
But it wasn't even like, it was worse than that because it wasn't like you couldn't take it off the rails. They just didn't have anything to do. Like because it was my first time, I didn't really get the whole, you need to let them participate, which sounds so weird saying it, but 100% I was like, 18, super cocky, didn't understand it, and that was my mistake.
That sounds like a personally like a reasonable mistake to make as a first DM, because like that's part of the reason, a lot of people, like for me, my first time I just bought a module because I didn't want to worry about that, but then as players do, they take it off the rails anyway, so it's like but it's probably nerve-wracking too when especially if you're writing one, you're like, well, this is what I have, like I can't let them screw this up because I don't know where to go from there. But I'm sure, like, I don't know, no one's first time is beautiful, so but they forgave you. That's
yeah,
what's
they
important.
forgave me. They let me keep trying and let me get better at it. One of the things I'm both like grateful of and kind of jealous of. I'm grateful of for myself, but still jealous to a certain degree of modern players. Is that like I started playing at least before you had like D&D podcast and before you had you could like everybody I play with now who's a new player has watched streams and has seen at least one episode of Critical Role. Like everybody has this has a sense of how to play the game, and when I was jumping in, that wasn't a thing. So you had to kind of figure out what you wanted the game to be. Like there was that relationship of developing your version of the game. And I'm a little jealous of the people who get to start out now and have that base knowledge. So I'm guessing their first sessions are honestly much, much better than my first session was.
I mean, it depends. I've been talking to a lot of people, and like everyone is different. I've talked to I have guests that were my first guest was like meticulous. He's like I read the handbook from front to back. He also started with 3.5. He plays Pathfinder now. Great game. His first episode's great. But then I've had multiple guests where they're just like, the rules, nah. We just kind of like, they just throw together crazy worlds as they go, and like so there are still those people that want to figure it out. But I do agree that like with the culture kind of the way it grew and exploded, people know their shit now for sure.
Yeah, it gives you, because I think the biggest thing it does is it gives you a sense of what the game can look like. Because that was always the thing of like, I remember one of the first few sessions that I actually DM'd well, there was that sensation of like, oh, this is what this is. Like, that's what this game can be. Yeah. And like the freedom of like, and I know I bet so many rules and like, but it was still this like ridiculous fun. Like we still talk about that session where like they were able to like con 2 giants into fighting a dragon for them, and they were super low level, so it shouldn't have happened. And like they just had this like wacky fun time, and it was still that sense of like, oh, we can collaboratively make this story, we can improvise this, and I have just enough information where I can feel free and comfortable doing that.
That's fantastic though. But like that's good that eventually you kind of hit that stride. And like, I mean, I think everyone eventually gets to hit that with their group. Starting out, it's kind of clunky and stuff. Like as I refer to, and as my guests now refer to, as a quarantine D&D baby. Because like it was, I always wanted to play, but I was like, I never had time. And then I had time, so I played, and then I got really, really into it. And, a year and a half later, you have a podcast. That's just what happens. But it's definitely crazy and that's what happened with me. Is I was like, does everyone know about this? Because everyone should know about this game. This is a great game. It's been around for how long? And I'm just getting into this now. But it's like, when you get the bug, you get the bug. But
yeah, and it's awesome. Like that's it's really cool. Just sheer number of people. I run a lot of games who like start playing. Like I just started doing like paid DM work, which has been kind of an interesting change. And tons of people who jump in are like, oh, I just started playing during quarantine. And it's like I really love this, and like I just found out about this game, and I really this one campaign, and I really want to win this. That's how I'm running Curse of Strahd now with a bunch of people who are all very much that kind of thing. That's
awesome, and I'm glad that as a veteran player at you, because I know like there's probably some of these old veteran players that are like, I guess it's kind of like when someone's a hipster and like, oh, I played this before it was big, and but it's like now it's big, and now people can enjoy it freely. And it's like there's no kind of backlash now, or which kind of actually makes me wonder, because I'm still like always kind of looking for some stories like this. When you started playing and you were 18, so this was 10 years ago, not really that like in the realm of like satanic panic, but did you ever have any? I don't know where you grew up.
No, I mean, so like I was, for at least in regards to D&D, it was always very much just with a bunch of people who like D&D. So once I started playing D&D, I was surrounded by people who enjoyed the game. There wasn't really any sense of like the only you get maybe a little bit of condescension if you mention it like in like a work setting, but that would be about it. The bigger thing for me was I am a huge comic book nerd. I collect tons of comic books. Like it's one of my favorite things in the world. But like I remember I was in like the last group, at least comic book wise, where I was doing that when I was like 8 or 9. When I first got into it, is like that I got bullied over. Like that I remember getting crap about. And I remember when Iron Man came out, because that was like the turning point where people were like, oh, these are cool. And it's like, yeah, I could have told you that.
I
got some fun stuff if you want to read it.
Because it's on a screen and it's got handsome actors in it. Now it's cool. But yeah, no, you know, it's the way the world
that's the
changes.
closest I get to it. Yeah, I have that. Is like D&D. I got in like maybe a couple of years before it started really hitting the big.
Gotcha.
The big like cultural.
And I'm sure everyone knowing what you were into when you were like, I play D&D now. They're like, we already know. Like, you know, just that's.
You didn't do it before.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So cool. So let's I kind of, because you did give me a nice little pique my interest in your email. I want to hear. So you DM, but you also work on escape rooms.
I used to work in escape rooms. Yeah, I spent a year designing escape rooms out here for Illusions Escape Rooms. So I was like,
very cool. Shout out to Illusions Escape Room in where you're in. You said Arizona.
Yeah, I'm in Phoenix.
Phoenix, nice. Very
Phoenix
cool.
or North Phoenix. Super cool place. Yeah, I designed a bunch of rooms for them. It's really fun. It's very similar, but it hits a lot of the same lines, but the thing that changes the most at the end of the day is like there is a set timeline on how long you're allowed to be in an escape room for.
Right.
So you were only allowed an hour, and you have to solve those puzzles. So you have to get really good at, and it took me a little while to get good at this idea, was that you have to build puzzles that are just hard enough so that they feel challenging, but fulfill the exact amount of time you need to fill. So this puzzle has to be 2 minutes. This puzzle has to be 30.
My wife and I are escape room junkies, so we're like,
nice.
We love escape rooms. So it's so awesome to hear it from the other side. So it's true, because if you cruise through it, then... But I guess that kind of relates in, like... Obviously, you're not rolling initiative in an escape room, but, like, in D&D, if you have, like, a combat sequence and, like, all of them are way too hard, people get frustrated. But if all of them are way too easy, then it's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. The pacing is so important, like, both, like overarchingly in a campaign and then within a session itself. I worked really hard to get better, because I always felt like that was one of combat pacing. I always felt was like my worst trait, probably because I didn't read modules, because modules are really good about pacing it on, pacing those. But pacing combat's one of those things that if you can pace it properly, it's one of the most satisfying, sequences you can do in a game. But if paced improperly, like, it is just this monstrous slog, or why did I waste my time rolling for initiative kind of thing.
So when you were doing these escape rooms, did you take the ideas from D&D, or did you take the ideas from the escape room and put them in D&D? Like, how did you kind of condense those two ideas?
Me and like my creative partner who we like work together there, and we've talked about this before. We actually went through and like sadly they weren't able to do it because it was just been too expensive. We went through and like planned out like a D&D room, like of how you incorporate like class system and how you do all this kind of stuff and make it work.
In an escape room you were talking about?
Yeah, in an escape room setting. Yeah, we figured out kind of how to do that, which we'd love to do at some point in our lives. But a lot of what I brought over from it was the big stuff that I brought over from, at least from the D&D side, from the tabletop side, is that sense of you need to have a sense of freedom while you're going through this. So there should be a sense of discovery. My favorite thing whenever I'm DMing is that moment of when something happens, regardless if it's silly, dramatic, whatever, where you hear someone gasp and they're like, they did not expect that, regardless if it leads to a laugh or it leads to like an oh no or whatever. That moment is always so satisfying. So being able to build that choice into the narrative and to be able to make it so you feel like you are discovering this narrative as you go through is always the highlight for me, and what I try to do a lot in escape rooms. I'd every once in a while would incorporate in puzzles that weren't really, I guess, puzzles in a traditional sense, but were more in that sense of feeling like you're a part of this environment. Like a good example of that is I had we went through and built this thing where at one point you get like a little spray bottle and you have to water plants. So it's not like a real puzzle, but that sense of like you just interacted with you did this thing that the person living here would do, and it builds like this verisimilitude into it that otherwise you don't get to experience. And it's not like a long thing, that's 45 seconds, but there was always a smile on people's faces when they did that, and they got rewarded for that.
Right. No, that is cool. That's really unique too. Like, I've never really experienced anything like that. I mean, the ones I've done, I don't want to say they're not I don't think they've ever been like too linear or anything like that. But I've never really had one where it was just like a menial, what seems like a menial task, but actually helps you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun, because I feel like that can also be something. Like, I was playing a campaign one time, and we had to access these doors, and it was just like, we had to read in a language and just say coin, and we're like, oh, take a coin, put the coin in the little slot, and then it seems so trivial, but like sometimes that trivial stuff can actually trip people up, because like it can't be that simple. Did you ever have anyone like staring at the water bottle for like a really long time? Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
Thank God that never happened with that. But you'd have people who would just like panic over it's like, there's a star here, there's a star here, there's got to be a third star. Just like, no, just put the stars together. Like, that's basic escape room logic. Like there was one room where it was just this awful revisitation of my high school life. Because I was not like, I was just, you know, I don't feel like most people were very good people when they were 16. I am no exception to that rule.
No 16-year-old is a good person.
Yeah, so I was like I was game mastering this room, and in walked somebody who had like the same name as my aunt, who looked like me, who was this kid who had my same name, but was like 16, and then just an ass to everybody. And it was the thing where it's like, wow, this feels like I'm just getting a weird Vietnam flashback to my childhood, as they're just being awful and both disinterested and trying too hard to be clever. And it's like, wow, yeah, that's 16-year-old Jacob right there. That's
well,
I need this to end.
Oh man, that's so fun. That's so funny though. I mean, yeah, what are you gonna do? There's always some version of us out there still. Yeah, but yeah, I always like, it's good. It's cool to talk to someone, because I'm in that room all the time. I'm in those rooms. And sometimes I know I'm just being so stupid, and and you're like, just like one time I was like, can you get a hint? And it was just said, it was like a free one they gave me, but it just said turn around. And I was like, oh, it's like, oh man, that's embarrassing. But yeah. But then sometimes I surprise myself, and I'm like, I'm really bad at math, and I just like see these numbers on the side, and I'm like, is it this number? And then it is. I'm like, what? So I don't know.
I would do like crazy stuff with this, where it's like I would do like one of my favorite things was to do was like, there was this puzzle I built that we for a room that we sadly never built, where like it was very like kind of like evil. It was supposed to be like an evil demonic kind of thing. And it's in like a diner, so like you had to go, and at one point you'd have to rearrange pies, right? And you have to put the pies in the right places, and that would like pop something for you.
Okay.
And it's not too hard. You would have had to like look at a menu, and like it's just like a kind of like a matching puzzle for all intents and purposes, right?
All right, very cool.
Nothing crazy or anything like that. But I had gone through and matched up the types of pies so that they were, because this is the kind of sad research level nerd I am, where like I had matched up the types of pies to the Kabbalic tree of life, so that if anybody noticed, you were matching it up flavor-wise, symbolically to this, and you were building the Kabbalistic tree of life through these pies. And every single person who read it was like, I don't get why this has to be pies, and I don't get why you need these kind of pies. I was like, oh, you know, I guess we can not do it. That's fine. That's totally fine. I love cramming stuff like that into my games, where people have a habit of never noticing it, but I feel like it, at least for me, it helps keep it so that there's like this level of complexity to it. So when something happens and the character asks, like, well, like does a roll and tries to figure out, you know, just like a knowledge check, or I might just have them do like a straight intelligence check to see if they remember, can put together details of stuff that happened. Being able to be like, well, this thing you saw reminds you of this. And they go, oh, it does.
Right. No, that makes sense to give them that chance, because sometimes, you know, you're playing and you're not even remembering that your character saw something before, but your character would remember, because your character's in that world and you're kind of bouncing between two. Yeah. So it's good to give them that other chance and stuff like that.
In my home game, a character has basically a pet raptor.
Okay.
Which he of course named Chance the Raptor, because there was no other thing that the creature could have been named.
I love that.
They've been slowly like trying to parse out like what this raptor is, because the raptor was like it was like in the last session was revealed to be like a reincarnation of this deity. But while they were trying to uncover the mystery, he's talked to the raptor quite a few times, And he was just like, he asked me like, oh, can I check to see if I realize that this raptor is like smarter than a normal raptor or anything like that? And he rolled, and I was just like, yeah, the raptor used the word colonialism when you talked to him last. That seems like a real big concept for the raptor. And he was like, oh, yeah, no, he did say that. That is, yeah, that makes sense. And it was a really fun, just like wacky moment in the game that really helped build a sense of realism into it, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
a realism, but I don't know what the right word is there.
I love it. I love that. I don't know. I'm still new at DMing, so I'm still working on that, like incorporating smart stuff and not just like a little bit of role play, a little bit of combat, back and forth kind of deal. But it's like, it's hard. Like, you know, you're like, did they get this? Is this too weird? I don't know. So that's like, I think one of the hardest aspects of DMing is being able to incorporate those small like puzzles and things that aren't just straight, let's just fight stuff. Which I guess why with 5e and stuff, like regular D&D is kind of more geared towards that a little bit, but you can still incorporate that as opposed to like Call of Cthulhu, which is all like puzzle solving and not dying.
And try not to,
not fighting, just not dying. Like,
when I play Call of Cthulhu with a bunch of my friends, only one person had any experience with Call of Cthulhu, and you could tell because something scary happened, he ran, and everyone else was like, no, we're gonna fight. It's like, okay, you all die. Let's see what happens to him.
One of my guests, and also who's my brother-in-law, him and I have been talking about doing a Call of Cthulhu for sure, so definitely interested in that.
I love that game. But what I was gonna say is, and this is not my advice. This comes from, I feel like I'm pulling it from like a Brandon Lee Mulligan interview or something like that.
Right.
But the thing that really helped the most with DMing, that kind of, I feel like kind of made me, that was like the final thing I needed to like really improve was instead of focusing on like the adventure in a sense of like adventure, was instead of focusing on it in a place of theme. So you pick the theme, you kind of plan out the world in regards to theming, and then that's the thing that I focus on when I'm DMing. So I can, like, to use my home game, just to keep with that, is it's very much about colonialism and about the ways that different groups try to take advantage of different groups to try to commodify resources.
All right.
But what that leads to is when I'm playing is that like that can manifest as anything from having a really self-loathing dwelf. Half dwarf, half elf that just like really hates being an elf and loves being a dwarf and just pretends it's not any elf like, even though it's very clearly half elf. So it's just this goofy fun character, or it can lead to like larger narratives where, you know, it's much more dramatic and you can have this real fluidity to it, but it all still comes together to kind of focus on this. Right. So I can have everything from like a pirate unionizing session, which was a really fun, weird session, to like it's this war scene as they're trying to help refugees while the Sealy court's invading and yada yada. I mean, it gives a really wide range to it while still making it so you're able to like everything sort of comes together under that banner of whatever your main theme is.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It adds a lot of like depth to the story. Which is, that's all those layers and stuff. And it's hard to even, like, visualize it from an outside perspective. But I'm sure as you're playing through it, it, like, stacks and just creates this very cool story and world. So I can respect that a lot. That's definitely, like, really... That's really deep. That's really, like, in-depth. That's really crazy. Yeah, it's very smart stuff for sure.
I mean, it's a lot of, like I don't want to... Because I don't know. It's like, but I do like a lot of cheats while I'm playing too. So like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm like I've got all these things figured out or something like that.
No.
Yeah, I got like, is because I use Fey Run mostly because I don't want to have to world build my own world. Gotcha. So like I use Fey Run, and then as they're going this way, I've got a big map up on one part of my screen. I bounce over like, oh, they're going this way. This city. Let's Google that city. The city has these 3 things. Okay, I can improvise that and just sort of keep pulling and tying that in.
That's expected, but still, regardless, like the theme, like you said, building that theme, and yours is built around colonialism, is like, and you added all those layers, it's still all you. Like, you use resources to help, but, you know, a scientist uses resources to help, you know, mathematicians do, and so do DMs. And that's like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome, though. So when in these games, if you ever did, what do you have any like really fun stories you wanted to share, like specifics or something, either playing or DM, or I mean, I love I love the Chance the Raptor already, but like any specific moments that your players have done to you or crazy things?
I'm trying to think. I've been I'm gonna go with a like Doctor Who one, because I've got
listen,
I was running a multi-arc like Doctor Who thing where like, so every session is its own self-contained adventure, right? So you do your adventure, it's like episodes basically,
right?
And
Doctor
I structured
Who.
it,
yeah,
exactly.
Doctor Who is basically just a bunch of one-shots stringed together with a common theme.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we were doing. But there was one person was playing like a little bit of more of a wackier detective character, and for whatever reason, he decided it just naturally evolved where he kept doing. Anytime he got caught, he would use his fallback thing was to try to convince whoever caught him that he was an undercover boss, regardless of where he was. And so he would always, it was always the same phrasing, which was, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I'm an undercover boss. We are very impressed with your potential. Let's talk. It's something along the lines. It turned into this weird thing where I was always, I'm very loose about this stuff. So I was just like, yeah, you can roll to see if he knows, like, if this works. You're going to have a crazy high DC, but like, let's see. And it worked a shocking number of times. So just, it turned into like Undercover Boss was just like the universe's most commonly watched TV show, as they're on different planets and at different times. Everyone's like, yeah, oh, I love that show. Yeah. I would never have guessed. And like, it just kept happening.
That's hilarious. I picture the like NPCs in that world like kind of share, like, hey, the boss is actually in the building, so be like on your best behavior right now. It's like
pretty much. He would say it to like he'd be on like a planet of like basically spider people, and then they would just be like, no way, as they would shitter away. Just like, I can't. Like, it works. It's the kind of thing where it's a perfect like Doctor Who-y kind of thing. We're like, sure, yeah, that would kind of make sense. I'll let that slide.
It's like some psychic paper stuff, kind of like, it just that's so hilarious. I love that.
I had the person playing the Doctor. She, like, in the first session, like, we had gone through and planned out her TARDIS, like figured out what it looked like and all that kind of stuff. In the first session, she randomly improvised that she had a whisk on the TARDIS panel that she would hit, and it was the good luck whisk, right? Like, it was just a fun little detail. And then every session after that, she brought an actual whisk. So every time they had a dramatic roll, they would bop the good luck whisk, and then they would go about, and they would make their roll.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was super fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I had on like a frustrating side in a Muse Masterminds game I ran. I was doing I planned out this like
this is the
massive
2E game, right?
Yeah, this was a 2E game I ran.
It's Muse Masterminds, like that?
Mutants and Masterminds.
Mutants Masterminds. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Mutants Masterminds. Cool.
Yeah, I love the game. It can be a very arduous character creation process.
That's the superhero one, right?
Yeah,
cool.
100%. So they were playing superheroes, and I was doing the thing I always do, where I use a pre-built universe, and it ends up making it harder for me than easy. So I used DC, and they were having to steal. They were having to take like the villains had this crate that they needed to steal from them, right? And it was, so I designed this whole elaborate train system that was going to go underwater, and there were going to be these giant like Bane bait. They have the Bane venom in them, like giant fish that were going to attack, and
that's
going to
cool.
lead to this. Yeah, and instead of any of that, one of the players just walked up and had a pocket dimension and just booped it into the pocket dimension. So I had spent like 5 hours planning this thing.
Oh, no.
They resolve it in like 10 minutes. And I'm so like upset and frustrated, as I was saying, like up to the minute of session start, that I was like, Trigon shows up. You're going to deal with that shit now. Like, that was just like this.
So you just threw the main boss at him at that point?
Yeah, I just threw a different boss at them. Like, it wasn't even the main boss. There was very little setup for this. I was just like, yep.
That's
you find out the devil's showing up. What you gonna do now?
The holes that the players will find. They will fucking find them every time. Like, someone's gonna find it and just be like, wait a second, let's just do this instead. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaking moment, as I was just like so excited about this, and
did you do the
ripped away?
We did this one time with my DM, because like it was actually a combat scenario, but we ended up beating the like second big bad, like in the beginning when we weren't somehow, we just ended up, and the whole just like picks up the paper and just all of the notes and everything that was planned, and
they did that in my current campaign that I've been running, my home campaign I've been running, where I did these one shots, right? Where it was like one was I split the party, so one party was sent.
Is this also Mutants Masterminds?
No, this is 5e. This is 5e. This is my 5e game that's like maybe got. I think the game should have been about 6 months. I think that's about like the rest of the story.
Okay.
So they've been like fighting the Sealy Court, right? So one person did half the group was doing in the past, thousands of years past. One of the group was doing a little bit into the future.
Okay.
And they ended up. Because I just have an issue saying no, they ended up somehow making it so that session they fought the big boss of the whole game and whooped her ass and just like basically resolved every issue in the whole game, to the point where the characters, now that they know that, could have just been like, yes, just want to like take a vacation for 6 months. Like that seems the best option here. So I ended up having to spend, and I figured it out, but I had to spend like days just being like, how do I rework the entire ending of my game so that what they did doesn't basically just end the game, because it's not fun if only half the players in a one shot playing different characters resolved this whole thing.
Oh my god.
And that was a fun few days of just sheer panic as I'm just like, well, what about this and what about this, and like trying to
how many sessions did this take? I know you said it was a one shot. How many sessions?
That was just one session. That
was just one session. Okay.
Yeah, one like 3-4 hour session. They were playing through like the end of Magic, and one person like basically they dimension doored. No, I don't remember what spell they used, but they somehow teleported to where a god was being held, which I never expected them to think to do. So I had no plan for that. So of course that means like the boss would show up because she wants to protect her goods, and then like one thing led to another, and like a random magic item I gave because of the one shot. I was like, oh, don't worry, it's like you can't overpower somebody at a one shot.
So that's basically what happened, because they were like in a certain area. She showed up early to protect her stuff, and then that's when the fight, pretty much they were just like, well, we're just gonna throw down right now.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened here, and I messed. And so I had to rebuild the entire ending of this game that's been going on for like 2.5 years.
Okay.
And it should be. I think the ending as is going to work now, but it ended up like getting real weird. Like it ended up turning into like a whole Warforged army is going to be showing up. They've got like a bunch of weird stuff that's, I don't think, what they expect the game to go to.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you mess with the timeline, I guess. Yeah,
100%.
You could also like, I mean, we're talking Doctor Who, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff, like, because you can probably validate any of that if like, well, this enemy died, so because she died, this thing happened or didn't happen, resulting in, this Warforged army. Maybe they're on someone working underneath her. Like, I'm sure you have it all planned, but this is just my brain just being like, someone underneath her was trying to kill her anyway to take over or whatever, and then they build these things, so there's always ways you can spin it. But
it just there was just that panic of like, everything I've been building to is gone now. Like there was that sheer panic in the moment of like, I can't, like, yes, this works, I can't say no to any of this.
I don't see myself ever running like full run campaigns because I don't have the time for that, and I play the games I run are like on a monthly basis, but like I can't imagine having all that time and like planning and everything, and then it just the one shots I've run have gotten turned on their heads, and that's silly enough as it is. So
it's a hard thing. And this looks like it's going to be the first like campaign I ever actually finish. Right. But like I've run campaigns for a while before it, but they always have a habit of ending a little bit early. People move, things happen. My Mr. Mastermind campaign I ran had one session left, and then the person moved without giving me too much of a heads up before the game.
Oh.
So it was just like it was like a bad situation, but it just led to like, I guess that game's over.
Well, couldn't you just finish it on, like, do you only play in person, or do you play...
No. It was right before I made the switch over to Discord and stuff like that. So there was a long enough pause where now it's like, I don't remember how it, like, even a couple weeks after it, I was like kind of sad it happened. And then like, by the time I was using Discord, it was like, I could do this, but like, I don't remember well enough what happened, and my notes aren't very good. Like, so it's mostly, to be completely frank, I shouldn't blame him. It's my fault that we did not finish that game.
Hey, look, you got a lot of games going on. You're running games left and right. You're starting to do professional DMing, which is amazing. It's all really good stuff. So, I mean, you're still cranking at it, which is awesome. Were there any other kind of things you might wanted to share before we, because I try and keep this on 45 minutes to an hour. So, like, is there any other fun stories or anything? Do you want to plug anything if you have any?
I'm trying to think of any like fun short stories. I guess offhand, just plug wise, I would just, if I can, plug like I have an account on Start Playing that I DM through. So if anybody wants to come check out some of my sessions,
DMing through.
Yeah, so the website's called startplaying.games, I believe. And it's like a DM hosting site. So you can go there, find a ton of DMs. I DM through there. You can find me there. So
startplaying.games.
Yeah, I don't know how they got that, but that's
whatever. So
perfect.
So just DMing website.
Yeah, you can find DMs there. You can find tons of games there. I host all my stuff through there. Run my games through Discord. I also write for Comics Bookcase, so if anybody's interested, check out comicsbookcase.com. We do really cool, reviews, some long form pieces about comic books and what's going on in the today.
So that's comics with an S, bookcase.
I believe it's singular, actually. I apologize.
So
it's Bookcase.
comicbookcase.com. Excellent.
And then last, if I can plug one more thing, I'm so sorry to plug so much.
No, screw it. Listen, I'm also a stand-up comedian. I plug everything all the time, so don't worry.
Oh, perfect. I'm a writer for a podcast called the Cheesy Gordita Bunch, which is a Taco Bell podcast done by a bunch of really funny Austin comics.
Cheesy Gordita Bunch?
Yeah. I help write weird stuff for them. I used to do stand-up as well, and
nice.
we worked on a sketch show for a minute.
So Cheesy Gordita Bunch, you just talk about Taco Bell?
They talk about Taco Bell. Yeah, they talk about Taco Bell. They talk about history. I just write for the show, so I help plan out bits and do all that kind of help write interview questions, all that kind of good stuff.
As of this note, I didn't even know that was a market. So best of luck. How's the podcast? Yeah. Is it going all right or?
It's going surprisingly well. It keeps picking up. They haven't been doing it too long, and it's been doing surprisingly well. I didn't realize there was a market for weird Taco Bell podcasts. We did a whole episode where a friend of mine played Glenn Bell, the founder of Taco Bell, whose name I only know because of this. And it's weird to think that people are willing to listen to and enjoy an hour of a person doing comedic improv as Glenn Bell of all things.
That's hilarious.
It's a very niche market that seems to be expanding, and I'm very confused by it.
Mostly probably people who stay up late and sit on drive-through lines while they get their Taco Bell, because that's what we used to do. That's amazing. All right, cool, man. All right, so we have we got startplaying.games is the DMing website for anyone listening. You can go there. You can get you can connect with DMs and play some games. You hook up on Discord with Jacob Cordes over here. Then you have comicbookcase.com where you write for some comic. Is that like articles or is that writing specific comics?
No, it's writing like reviews and writing like analysis. I am working on a comic book, but that's still too far down the line for me to comfortably plug.
And then we'll check out the Cheesy Gordita Bunch, which is the podcast you're working on as well. That's awesome, man. I'm glad you have a lot of info. I'm glad you're a very experienced player. You got great knowledge and stories. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on. Let me do my couple sign-offs. Yeah, absolutely. So once again, everybody, this has been You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. If you want to be on the show, all you got to do is follow us here on Twitch or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on most of the podcasting websites. And then send me an email. You Had to Be There, dndpodcast@gmail.com. That's D&D with those 3 letters. And you can follow me on Instagram at Tom DeSillis Comedy for updates on stand-up shows coming up. I've been pretty busy, but still I want to make sure we get this done because I love doing this too. And yeah, thanks again for listening, everybody. This has been You Had to Be There with Jacob Cordes. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.